You sure?
Yep, go ahead.
No, I don't mind doing it. All right, I think we're doing it also. So. All right, let me begin. A little bit about me. I'm Gil. I'm one of the co-founders of Tobi. And this is not Geology 101, so you're in the wrong class. No, I was going to do a demo of Tobi, but I decided you guys can sign up for a demo. We can do it on a Zoom. It'll be a lot easier, it'll be quieter and more intimate. I also own a fleet. I'm a fleet owner in New York. I have about 55 vehicles, all wheelchairs, some stretcher. I operate in like the New York metro area. And my company's called First Choice Amulet. I have been in the industry for about 30 years. I mean, I only look like I'm 30. I started when I was 14. My dad bought a wheelchair van in 1994, and he gave me a pager when I was in high school, and he used to page me and say, hey, I need to help to carry somebody down a flight of stairs. So he'd be like, just leave class and pick you up in front of the high school, so you can imagine how popular I was. And take me, and we'd go take somebody down a flight of stairs and drop me back home to school. That's how I started nearly 30 years ago. About 25 years ago, I got my license. I started driving in summers, went to college, studied computer science, some software. Went in and out of the business for a while, but always at night. Took over the company officially in 2012. I really took over 2016 and started doing it. When I took it over with my dad, we had 5 vehicles. I've been around for a while. 5 vehicles were old and beat up, and the calls were coming in. So I said, we're going to do this. I got to figure it out. And this is what I did. This is how my marketing strategy worked. And this is the tools that I used to grow from 5 to 55 over the last 7 or 8 years. And hopefully that provides more value than just doing a demo of our software, which you can do by all means if you haven't done yet. You should sign up with Evan. So I'm just going to dive right through. So we're in a very good position right now. Everybody in this room understands that NEMT is really on an upward trajectory. The big thing that happened was a couple of years ago when Congress ratified the NEMT benefit to Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act. It's kind of what was trumpeted by NEMTAC and some other agencies, but wasn't big in the news because NEMT isn't big in the news all the time. It's not, a well-known thing. But it's a huge benefit for us. It means that states that, just so if you guys don't know, states that traditionally did not subscribe to NEMT, meaning they took Medicaid money but didn't pay out NEMT benefits, now are required to pay those NEMT benefits. And there's just a huge opportunity for us, right? And if you're not in one of those states, that's fine, but if you are, you'll see that the industry is really starting to move. The expected growth rate is huge. I mean, I think this number is conservative. I think that the growth rate is going to be even higher than this. 50 billion, by 2028 is probably small. I think it'll be a little bit more. So the opportunity is there, and then the money is there. So we're all about to grab it. So market for Medicaid, market for NEMT, and I'm sure you guys, know this. If you don't, stop me if you have any questions. The big one is Medicaid. That's the 800-pound gorilla in our industry, and they've got all the money or a lot of the money. Long-term managed care, MLTCs, HMOs, MCOs, whatever word you call it, that's available. Brokers, and whether they contract with municipalities, states, MLTCs, Medicaid programs, they cover all illnesses. And you can see here are some brokers represented, and you guys all know about them. And then institutions. These are the real high volume facilities, right? This is where you're gonna get, if you need work, you need a lot of work and you wanna grow, this is where you wanna go to get the work. Now, don't get me wrong, this is only part of this is private pay, and we'll talk more about that as I go. But in terms of growing fleet size and getting vehicles and getting trips in, these are your 4 main drivers. So as a company, you need a strategic advantage, right? You do, because the truth is, unless you're in one of those states that did not have the Medicaid transportation program, and NEMT really wasn't something that existed, somebody's already doing it, right? It's not new. Unless it's a brand new hospital, just built, or a brand new nursing home, a brand new dialysis center, whatever it is, they don't have a contract, they don't have a provider, they don't have anything. Somebody's doing the work. It could be you, it could be me, it could be somebody else, but somebody's already in there, right? So you need to, if you want to go get business from them, you're not coming in there and saying, oh, look at me, I'm beautiful, I have blue eyes, and I, 110 pounds. It's not going to work. You can't just go in there and say, give me the work, please. It doesn't work. You need to have strategic advantages, and they're very important. And I'm going to gloss on some of these, and I'm going to talk more about some of them. But fleet size is important. And fleet size really means capacity, right? If you don't have capacity, you just can't do work. And so what that means is, if you have one van, that's good. It's a start, right? You have capacity of one van. But you have to grow, because you're going to get work in and you're going to have to turn it away. And that's the challenge. So in our industry, and this is something that I learned, you just can't stay stagnant. Like if you got 10 vans, that's great, but you can't stay with 10 vans or 10 vehicles and expect to grow. Yes, you could charge more money, you get a rate increase from a broker, but it's negligible. It's not going to impact your bottom line in a way, because your expenses will rise as well. Your vehicles get older, the cost of maintaining them is more, so you have to grow. You have to be buying new vehicles, and it's one of those things. It's a lot of pressure. I know it's financial pressure and it's commitment, but that's part of the business. You have to be able to get that money, go get the loan if you have to. I know the interest rates are high, but you have to do it. And it is like a critical piece of our business. You just have to grow. The market is there, the business is there, I assure you. But if you don't have the fleet, you will not get it. The next thing I'm going to talk about is availability. And this is something that I've seen with some of my competition in New York. I'm not saying everybody has to be open 24/7, because NEMT typically isn't a 24/7 business. Emergency ambulance, yeah, sure. But NEMT is not. So, when are we busiest? We're busiest during the day, Monday to Friday. You have to be available. I know companies, competitors of mine that close at 4. They open at 8, they close at 4. They don't do early morning, they don't do afternoon. They're leaving a huge piece of the business on the table. And it's a mistake. You have to be available. You have to open your thing. That's the business. If there's a restaurant that's only open from, let's say 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., how much business are they going to do? Nothing, right? And that's the idea. So if you're not available and you don't open, this is a critical piece of our business. You have to be available. Quick response, and this is correlated with fleet size and capacity. Think about the plight of our customer, right? Our end customer. Let's say you pick up a lady, an old lady, 85-year-old lady, and you're taking her to the cardiologist, to the doctor, right? She's up a flight of stairs. She's in a wheelchair, right? She's got to fast because she's got to do blood work. They say blood work's got to be fasted. She hasn't eaten since the night before, right? She's in a wheelchair. She's not eating. You pick her up, you take her to the doctor's going to poke her, he's going to prod her, he's going to inject her, he's going to pull her blood out. She hasn't eaten. It's hard to toilet. She may not have any eating. All those things, she may put her on an x-ray machine or an MRI machine. She's getting in and out of the wheelchair. It's uncomfortable. It's exhausting. It's tiring. She's 86. This is a tough thing. It's not like this pleasure visit that she's going to Disney. This is a tough thing that she's got to do. So if you put your mindset in the plight of our clients who we're actually transporting, right? Quick response is important, and it really is, and that correlates with vehicle size and availability. Because the truth is, if you want to get the business and you want to keep it, you have to be responsible. You have to respond. You have to be there within, like you said, there's no time limit in certain states. You have to be able to respond. And it's very important, and that can be the differentiator. So when you get an account that somebody else is doing, and their response is not like yours is, you're going to win every time, right? Technology. I'm going to trumpet my own just because we're here, but this has been a key piece of me building my business. You need to have technology and you need to invest in it. This is not like the days where you just hired a good dispatcher and did everything with pen and paper. And believe it or not, in my journey with Tobi, we've been talking to customers who still use pen and paper. They're like, my mind's blown. I'm like, this is unbelievable. How do you, they're like, well, that's the way we've done it for the last 25 years, and I don't know if we're going to change. Right. And that's fine, but they're not going to last. right? And they're not gonna grow. Because I don't care how good you are, I don't care what you know. The truth is, every business that's successful today invests in technology. And if you tell me they don't, I'll have an argument with you, because it is critical. So you need to invest in technology. It is very important, and you need to have very good technology. Like, obviously, I think mine is the best, but there's a sort of a soup for everywhere, right? Maybe it's not the best for somebody with one vehicle, maybe it's not the best for something like that, but for me and for my business and for what I do, and for most of the people in this room, it really helps having great technology. And then the last thing that you really need to do is for hiring practices. And this is something that maybe a couple of years ago, the speech would go different. Hiring practices, and as we all know, there's a driver shortage. It's very hard to hire, very hard to keep. It's never cost more money to get a driver through the door than, the rates are higher, people are demanding more. And I get it, and I think we all do. And meanwhile, our rates are somewhat stagnant, and it's difficult, and it cuts the bottom line. But the truth is that hiring practices are critical. Your drivers are your front line, right? Your drivers are the ones who make or break your business. If you don't invest in your drivers, you don't give them the right tools, you don't hire good people, you have no shot. I'm sorry. Because as good as you could be, and as nice as my office could be, and as nice as a guy as I could be, if my driver's crap, my service can be crap. And it's not gonna work. So, these are common sense to us, right? But it's amazing how if you don't really do all 5 of these things at the same time, really invest in them, and really stick with those principles, you find yourself, lacking in one or the other, and it's challenging to grow, and it's challenging to get better. So, these are my principles. This is something that I drill into my staff, something that I live by. My drivers are going to be the best. I'm going to be the bestest. I'm going to invest in the best technology that I can. I'm available. I run 24/7. There's always somebody on the phone. It's just my choice. You don't have to, but that's what I do. And I grow my fleet constantly. I'm buying vehicles every day. I'm looking on the market. I'm buying used. I'm buying new. I'm ordering. I'm buying vehicles because I know that's my business, right? That's what I want to grow. So, how do you get bigger? How do you market, right? You've abided by my principles. You agree with them. This is the way to run your business. And of course, there are other nuance items and things like that. How do you grow? I have 3 core tenets that I use to grow my business. One is brand awareness. Now, you could be called, XYZ Fleet, and that's fine. But if people don't know that XYZ Fleet exists, and they don't know that there is an XYZ Fleet, you don't have anything. Am I right? You need a brand, and you need to stick to your brand. Don't keep changing names. Develop a brand and develop awareness of the brand. And we'll talk more about that and how to do that in a minute. But brand awareness is very important. My company's First Choice Ambulette. We've been around for a while. If you go in the New York metro area, people know my company. Especially with all the facilities, that's what's the critical piece. The second piece of marketing is, and this is more of a sales thing, but it's relationship building. At the end of the day, you can have a great brand, and you can do all the fun, have great vehicles, and have great drivers. But if you have no relationships, nobody's going to call you. Nobody's going to send you trips. Nobody's going to know you. This is a relationship-built business. At the end of the day, it really, really is. You can market, and we'll talk about marketing. We can do advertising. We can spend money, throw money at it. At the end of the day, relationships are key. And, it's the hardest part because, you got to go out, you got to make yourself uncomfortable. And you've got to talk to people, and you got to be told no, and I get it. It sucks. Nobody wants to be told no. But it's critical to our business that you make relationships, you build relationships. Then the third piece I think is somewhat unique because I think the other 2 you guys probably are aware of. The third thing that I actually advocate, that I spend a lot of money and time on, is end user education. And I'll get to specifically what that means and how that looks and some ways of doing it. But the truth is that, people know what a limo is. People know what an ambulance is. People know what a taxi is. A lot of people who need NEMT services have no idea that it exists. And I'm not talking about nurses and quite frankly, some even nurses and doctors don't even know what it is. I actually went to go see a doctor for myself, and I told him, I'm in the NEMT business. He goes, what's that? He didn't know what it was. So, there's this end user piece where we're trying to get education about what we are, not just like how great we are and how we can do a great job and we're better than everybody else. But what is it? Like, what do we do? We're not a taxi, we're not a limo, we're not an ambulance. What do we do? And it's very important, the more you educate your end user about expectations, about what services they can expect, about what they can expect when they engage with your company, about how much it costs, how much it doesn't cost, all of those factors, that drives engagement, that drives relationships, and that drives business. Any questions so far before I go? Let's talk about brand awareness. Some of the things that are just absolute musts, right? You need a company website. I know that some of you guys don't have one, and how am I going to afford it? I mean, you can go on Weebly and build a website for $20 a month, drag and drop, and that's fine. But as you grow and as you want to grow, spend the money. A web presence is critical. This is absolute, it's an absolute must to me. And not just a web presence, but a booking form. Because if you think about it this way, imagine you have a salesman who's always working 24/7 and can bring in business without doing anything, without paying. That's what a website is, right? It's a great feature. You don't have a website, you don't have an online booking form, that should be the first thing you do. Go home, find a web designer, yes.
Can I make a comment on that?
Yes.
So we have a website and we built an online booking tool.
Yes.
Gave them the price and everything. When we did that, our private page from our website disappeared. I don't know why.
I understand one piece of advice.
But
don't give them the price.
Yeah, the price. But when they call us on the phone, we give them the price. They're fine with it.
Yes.
But when they see it on the web page, they're just like they have a little shock and like.
I think what they're doing is they're shocked.
Yeah, but
so
we were getting all kinds of contacts on the phone, but once they went through the booking tool, we were getting nothing. It just completely disappeared on us.
I mean, my advice would
It was weird.
I don't actually pull prices on my web booking portal. My web booking portal is more of a request for booking, just because there's a lot more nuance in booking a trip for an NEMT than there is like a taxi or an Uber or, that's a very generic, like, the driver's gonna pull up on the horn and you get in. If you're gonna book a stretcher or a wheelchair transport,
There's a lot of
steps, yes. And while you can put all those steps in there, you need, I think in my opinion, you need somebody to ask those questions correctly when they're booking it and just to verify. Because also think about our population, if it's like the son or daughter of an elderly patient or geriatric patient, then that's fine, right? They know how to use a web. But I don't know how many 88 or 90-year-olds could actually do that correctly, put in the correct information. So my advice is for that, you just make it more of an intake form.
We did, and we just went back to the contact form. They fill it out. We get an email. We call them, and then we book it.
Has it been better?
Way better.
And you drive engagement from your website.
Yes, and they want to talk to people.
Perfect. I love it. You're validating what I'm saying. That makes me happy.
Yes.
So great. And that's great advice. So thank you. I appreciate that. That's great advice. But it is critical. If you don't have it, that should be the first thing you do. Social media. Believe it or not, while our end users are generally geriatric, or they're on social media. They're on Facebook. My 90-year-old wife, my wife's 98-year-old grandmother is on Facebook. I mean, the things she posts that's a different topic. But she's a little anecdote. She thought that LOL meant lots of love. So sadly, a friend of hers passed away, and she wrote best wishes. LOL. So that was a tough talk to have. But it is what it is. But they're on social media. They are, and this allows you to drive brand awareness and end user education. I mean, I'll be honest, my social media is not as good as I'd like it to be. But it is, when I leave this conference, it is something that I am going to focus on. Because that's where people are. Where are they? I mean, you guys are all on social media. And if you're not, somebody you know is. And that's how you drive awareness. Print ads. You're talking about print ads. You're gonna look at me like I'm crazy, right? This is 1975, print ads. And I'm not saying advertising the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, or whatever, but I've found to be very effective for end user education, specifically, is to put ads in very hyper-local newsletters. Because believe it or not, our end users read those. I'll give you an example. In New York, there's a apartment complex called North Shore Towers. The apartments range from $700 to $1.5 or $2 million, very expensive. The average age of the resident of that facility, that's not a facility, it's just an apartment building. But the average age is 80, right? It's just a place where old people move to who have money, right? So those are not Medicaid patients, those are private pay. And I advertise in the North Shore Times, the Towers newsletter, in the Queens Gazette. I advertise all of those things. And I don't put coupons and I don't say, I write, did you know that we can take you to your family for lunch if you're in a wheelchair? You know, stuff like that, engaging. I'm not gonna tell you exactly how to market because you guys are creative. And if you're not, hire a copywriter. But local print ads, hyper-local, are very effective, especially with private pay. Very, very effective. And promotional items. And I'll walk through all this stuff. I realize now that I kind of glossed over all this. I made slides and print ads are very effective. And then promotional items, like you gotta have swag. You know, you got it. When you go to a nursing home, when you go to a hospital, sometimes hospitals don't take them now, which is fine. But you gotta have swag. I mean, you know, you see that all of the vendors here today brought some sort of swag with them. Pens, post-it notes, you know, genie dolls, Vans and Squeeze, you know, all those things. Those drive brand awareness. Very important. Yes.
We put stuffed animals in our vans, in cargo nets, put stuffed animals allowed to put our logo on buttons, and we will give them away to our passengers if they ask for them.
That's a great idea. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just about anything that you can do is effective because it has your name on it, right? So yeah, promotional items are key. Spend the money. It's worth it. All right, let's talk about relationships. Relationships. This is the tough one. This is the big one. Relationship building is key, and I have I have two different approaches to relationship building. Right? You call them top down and bottom up. Right? You have buyers. We have people who order, people who book. Right? It could be family, it could be the patient directly, you know, the client directly. Most of the time, it's going to be somebody whose responsibility is to schedule for your client. You know, maybe 80% of the time, 75% of the time. It's not going to be driven by the actual person you train. It's going to be driven by somebody else, the engagement. So I use a five-pointed approach for this, and this is what I've been using for a while, and I find it to be effective in building relationships. And when I say top down and bottom up, I'll explain that in a minute. Sales letters. I mean, I'll write a letter, and right now, ChatGPT, you know, they've been, hey, write a sales letter for me, my NEMT company. You know, if you can't come up with it yourself, no problem. There's tools to help you do that. Write sales letters, email, traditionally mail. You would be surprised that facilities open their mail. They have it. Don't have a choice. So send out letters. Yes.
Have you tried like writing in hand versus like typing it out?
You know, I don't. My handwriting is horrible, so I don't do that. But it could be an effective way to do it. Yes, I agree. Maybe I'll get my wife to. She's in. But yeah, it is an effective way of doing it. I just have not. Yes.
Do you purchase a list of facilities, or do you just go on Google?
Harvesting lists is I actually don't talk about that here, but you could just go on Google, you could drive around, and we can talk about that also, about harvesting lists. I mean, I would think that it's some sort of like a fairly simple thing to do. If you're focusing on, like, you're never going to find a list of every single person who needs NEMT. That's not a list that exists, right? I do, however, recommend, you know, not purchasing lists, but generating your own. And one of the things I use a CRM software, and I didn't actually put a slide on this, but I figured I'd talk about it. I use HubSpot. It's a free version of it. that really will solve all of our needs in terms of, hey, Mary Jo is the receptionist at Dry Harbor Nursing Home, and I'm gonna get to that in a minute about how I engage in that relationship building. But this is probably the strongest tool you can use to get a high volume facility to actually use your company. Because like I said from the beginning, you're not first. Somebody's already there, right? Somebody's already done this work. So you need to make a change, and change is hard. People do not like change. None of us do. So it is very important that you build that relationship. And it takes time, and it takes persistence and perseverance. And you're gonna be told no. You cannot expect to walk into a facility, you cannot expect to send a letter and then saying, oh, great letter, I'm gonna give you all of our work, here you go. It just doesn't work that way. And if you think it does, maybe, but I have not done that in the case. So use a 5-point approach, and I harvest leads, I send sales letters, I write them, I send them constantly, once a week. I cold call constantly. I mean, if there's a facility that I want to get the work from that's not using me, I'm gonna call them. Say, hey, we're here. You got a tough trip, you got somebody, who couldn't make it out at last minute, whatever it is, I'm available. Call me. You got anything going out today that, just came up? You got a difficult patient? Give it to me. I'm here. Or calling and saying, who's the person that orders transportation? Is it you? Is it the DNS? Is it the nursing station? What's their name? Put it in your HubSpot. Track it with your CRM. That's the trick. Cold visiting, I do it all the time. I make it my point to do it twice a week. And as you grow, you can hire I have salespeople who work for me. We'll go out and visit existing facilities on a weekly basis and have a rotating list and update our CRM and keep track of changes in staffing, because that happens a lot of facilities. You have somebody who's working at the nursing station one day, and then she's gone and somebody else replaced her, and they're not gonna call you and tell you, so you gotta keep track of that. So I have salespeople that go out constantly. I actually was telling somebody yesterday, an effective part-time salesperson that I found to be helpful are real estate agents. Obviously very dedicated, high volume, really good real estate agents are sales managers. But there are people who sort of do real estate as a passion project or part-time, but they're generally engaging and for a couple $100 a day or $150 a day and some gas, will visit 15 facilities and drop off your promotional items and update your CRM without you having to do the work, right? That's a tool that I've been using a lot lately. So cold visiting is key. I don't know if you guys noticed, but us being here at this conference made us face to face, right? I met a lot of you guys for the first time, and we met face to face. And while I know some of you, and I met some of the people here in the past, being in the industry for a while, the truth is that face-to-face communication is a big thing. And whether it's you or your agent or somebody in your company, or even your drivers, quite frankly, cold visiting, like just showing up, like, hey, I'm First Choice Ambulette, this is me. Sometimes I even drive one of my vans. If I have a brand new van, it's a great thing. Brand new van, just got delivered, clean as a whistle, no miles on it. I'll take that thing out before I put it into service. And I'll go around to all the facilities that I want to get that don't use me for whatever the reason. Say, hey, come outside, check out this van. It's brand new. Look how it's shiny, cleaning, perfectly clean, brand new vehicle. I'm going to send this to your facility. Oh, my patients love that. Sure, that's great. I like that. Oh, I can get out of the facility for a minute? Sure. It sounds great. So cold visiting is key. Setting appointments. Now, this is where we talk about top down and bottom up. You have to do both. And when I mean top down and bottom up, there's always going to be, especially when you're talking about a high frequency facility, you have nursing homes, hospitals. Are you going to get a meeting with the president of the hospital at your first cold call? No, you're just not. They're busy. It's just not something that they're going to say, sure, come on in. And then maybe you do, and that's perfect. But there's two approaches. The approach is start with the president, start with the administrator of nursing, start with the top person, the director of nursing. Start with that person, find out who that is and start with that person. But also start with the receptionist. the lady at the front desk or the guy at the front desk. You know, walk in there, introduce yourself to them. You'd be surprised. Sometimes those people run the entire facility. You know, you would be shocked if that's the case. And more often than not, those people have brought me in because I made relationships with them. And I don't even know who the administrator is. Never met them, never even seen them. But I get the entire facility, an 800-bed facility worth of work because I'm friends with the receptionist. And I've updated my CRM. And for instance, I was talking to somebody the other day. There was a nurse case manager at a facility that I happened to be able to get to meet. I got to her office. She had Elvis stuff all over her office, like posters and figurines of Elvis and all this stuff of Elvis. And I'm not a big Elvis guy, but whatever. And so the next time I went there, I went to the record store. Like there's a record store near my office, and I go to the guy. I go, "Do you have an interesting Elvis record?" He goes, "Yeah, you can have this one." It's like I think it was like $5. Sure. So I got this like vinyl Elvis record. It was original, and I showed up and I said, "Hey, can I just see Mary Jane really quickly?" And they said, "Sure." And you know, I bring her in, I give her this record. Boom. Relationship was done. You know, she was mine. The facility is mine. That's it. And you know, it's those little things, paying attention to detail. That's building relationships, right? Another example: a nursing home administrator. He's a huge golf fan. Golf balls all over the place. His clubs in the corner of his pocket. In the corner of his office, had a putting mat. You know, in his office. I happen to play golf. So the next time I went to him, I found there was somebody took a dollar bill and folded it into the shape of a golfer. It was $10. I brought it in. I gave it to the guy. He was like, "Oh my God, this is awesome!" He put it right on his desk, and so it was mine. So you know, relationship building, top down, bottom up. You know, the bottom could be the receptionist, could be the front desk person, could be the ward clerk, could be whatever the need is at that facility. But if you want to get it, you have to find out who they are, not just what they do. You can't just stand and say, "I'm first shift into that, great. That's not what they're interested in. They know that. Everybody says that. You know, find out who they are. Have a conversation. You know, do you have children? Do you live locally? You know, or are you a jet fan? What happened to Rogers? Things like that. And I mean, this is, yes, basic sales. I know that. But you'd be surprised how many people just don't do this. And this is what I use. Appointments are key, you know, setting appointments, being at the appointments. Do never cancel an appointment. And at meetings, that's the same. But the idea is that you want to do both. You know, you want to do bottom up and you want to do top down. So try both. If you have a facility in mind that you really want to get the business, you start with that. And I talked through all this stuff. I forgot to get any questions so far? Or should I... Okay. End user education. So I think this is what differentiates me and my company from a lot of other my competition, is that I focus a lot on end user education because, like I mentioned, people don't know what in New York we call them ambulance. People don't know what it is. They say, "Oh, an ambulance?" No, it's not an ambulance. "Oh, is it like a taxi?" No, it's not quite a taxi. But education is key, you know, and nobody really does it. I find that the most effective way of educating our, like I said, print media is huge, right? Believe it or not, like, did you know, and social media too, Google ads. I'll give you an example of a Google ad campaign I ran fairly recently, which was take your mom to lunch, right? I know it was specific. I know it was like the Google ad led to a custom-built website that said, "Hey, is your mom in a nursing home? You know, we're offering discounted rates. Take your mom to lunch." You know, we found these restaurants. We had hyper local. I found restaurants that were ADA compliant, had no steps. We're able to take wheelchairs. You can take her to Lily's restaurant, and they'll give you 10% off. You partner with the restaurant, and we'll give you 10% off our normal fee, and take your mom to lunch. You'd be shocked. We did about 50 of those. And those are private pay. And that's money. You know, look, like we know, you know, Medicaid is one thing, the facility, the medical trips are one thing. But NEMT isn't just about medical trips. I know it's not emergency medical transportation. It's about providing access, right? If you're doing wheelchair, if you're doing stretcher, if you're doing modalities besides ambulatory, we're providing access to people who quite frankly don't qualify for it or don't have access to go out. So, giving an idea to somebody is critical, yes.
In the holiday season, we advertise Christmas light show tour. We take them out and they get to see all the Christmas lights. They have tears at the end of
That's
the
one.
trip.
That it's true, and like it's one of those things. Think like your client. Like your client, if they're in a wheelchair, I'll give you an example. I know a client that she's up a 4th floor, walk up. She's on 4 flights, 400 pounds. She doesn't get out. She's home all day. She's watching TV, on social media, probably posting crap. But she's home all day. So when she goes out, when she goes to the doctor, this is like the greatest thing ever for her because she's getting out of the house. So NEMT is more than just, we're going to take these people to the doctor, but we're actually providing access. And we're providing a service to people. It's important to know that. I had a YouTube video up for a while on where it was me, and it was the proper way to take somebody in a wheelchair down 3 steps. You'd be shocked. You'd be shocked. It had thousands of views. I ended up taking it down, but it was an unbelievably effective marketing campaign. A lot of people come home from the hospital, they don't use an NEMT service. They get a hip replacement or knee replacement, something orthopedic. They end up staying they go back to their home, they live in a split level house with steps, where they have 3 steps to get out of their ranch or whatever it is. And they don't necessarily need, a wheelchair van, but, the wife doesn't know how to get this heavy husband down 3 steps in a wheelchair. And they fall. It's horrible. I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard stories like that. So just that one YouTube video I did where it was me and I had one of my drivers sitting in the chair, and I bumped her down 3 steps and put her in the van. That thing had thousands of views, and I had my company name right on it. And you'd be shocked. People called and said, "Hey, I wanted to thank you. I didn't know how to take my husband down the stairs, and because I saw your video, now I know how to do it." So that's end user education. It's not just about use my company. We have the most vans. Use my company. My drivers are great. Use my company because we exist. And you can. Patient website, we talk about those. So, there are, 3 core areas that you really need to do, and I think that we've touched on them. But what I find is, and somebody asked me a really good question the other day. Somebody asked me, I can't see, I don't have my glasses on.
10 minutes.
All right, it's perfect. I'm sort of like getting sort of wrapping up. Somebody asked me a great question earlier. They said, if there was one thing that you've learned in the 25 years or whatever, however long you've been doing this, if there was one thing you could tell me to do as a new company or somebody who wants to grow, what would it be? And honestly, he didn't like my answer. The answer was there isn't. There isn't one thing. There's no silver bullet. There's no one action that you can take right now. I could make an ad that says that, and you guys would click on it because you'd say, is there one thing I can do? That's great. The truth is, there's not. You have to do all this. And I find that when I don't do all this, it's obvious. My numbers dip. I can tell you, first thing, when I slow down my spend on marketing, when I stop buying vehicles, when I stop hiring good drivers, when I don't buy the print ads, when I don't hire my salespeople, when I don't go out, when I stop doing all of the things that I've talked about, my numbers dip. And that's the truth. And yours will too. And it's unfortunate. But it's one of those things that there's not like one thing that you can do. You have to do all of these things. And then some. And I'm sure you guys are going to come up with ideas that are better than mine. I'm sure that you guys, and you already have, quite frankly. I love that Christmas light show. It's brilliant. But it's one of those things that this is our business, right? This is what we do for a living. And this is how we feed our family. So we really need to do these things, and we need to do them all the time. And that's how I grow. And that's what I do. Any questions? There's got to be a question. You don't want to know the one thing that I would do?
You said there isn't one thing.
That's correct. So, to talk a little bit more, definitely at the bare minimum, how many of you guys have a CRM? see 3 hands. It's not enough. At a bare minimum, how many guys have a website? I see some hands not up. So I think at a bare minimum, you guys gotta go out literally today or tomorrow. Your first objective is get a CRM. I mean, HubSpot is free. Use HubSpot. They don't pay me. I mean, I pay them, but use HubSpot. It's free. Get names, get locations, get information. There's so many notes you can put in there. You can do it on your phone. It's so easy. It's a great tool. At a minimum, get a CRM. You don't have a website, that should be your next immediate goal. Get a website up and running. Even if you don't have the booking portal, even if you don't have the patient, the quotes and the booking on it, even if it's just at a bare minimum, this is my company, this is my brand, this is my website, get that up and running. At a bare minimum. Yes.
Question. So we work in government contracting exclusively.
Mhm.
So stuff like this, when you're talking about these like offshoots, like Christmas light shows, like take your mom out for food, like what would be the advice that you would give for somebody looking to start branching off of what their company does and what they're comfortable in? How's the best way to get out of your comfort zone with that? Is it a week-long campaign of offering this, or is it a one-day event of this one thing that they can prepare for? Is one easier than the other? Or
Are you
the best
talking
way
like
to branch
cultural
out?
change in your organization, or are you talking like you want to expand your line of business?
Expand. It's more what's the best way to get out of your comfort zone, I guess, is the idea of if I've been doing this for 4 years and we're doing okay doing this one thing, how does somebody who hears that and goes, oh, that's great, when am I going to begin to do something for a day, a week, a Christmas light
Well, yeah,
show?
so there's a great quote, and I don't know who to attribute it to, but it's get comfortable being uncomfortable. I mean, the truth is that, and this is what I mentioned when I said that if I don't do all these things, my numbers dip. The truth is that you get comfortable. You do. You know, I have my vehicles, and there was a point where 35 vans or whatever it was, and I was cranking. You know, we were making money, and I was really happy, and it was comfortable, and it was easy, and my operation worked great. It was seamlessly, and I knew people, and everything was great. And then the world ended in 2019, and particularly where I am in Queens, in New York, the world really ended. You know, and it ended right away in one day. We went from doing 600-700 rides a day to 30, just like that, one day. And of those 30, you know, all of them passed away, unfortunately, for dialysis patients. So it was like, you know, cranking, doing what I was comfortable doing. And then all of a sudden, my business is dead. And then I started being comfortable being uncomfortable. And I said, well, what were the tenets? And this is where this came from, actually. That's what bore this. What did I do to get to 35? That's what I looked at myself. When I was sitting there, it's funny because, you know, the world ended, I was home. Luckily, I had actually just developed the first version of Tobi back in 2020. And we had transitioned from our old software, which was server-based in my office, to the cloud. So it was really, you know, fortuitous that I could send everybody home. We could run our vehicles with 30 trips with our, you know, 35 vans. We could do that, and it was fortuitous that I could send everybody home to my office, and, you know, I had some masks, believe it or not, so it was all right. But I said to myself, well, I'm sitting here, I don't have to manage the operations. You know, I've got all these people doing all these jobs, you know, the business kind of runs itself. What am I going to do? And I remember my wife was looking at me, my kid was looking at me, my dog was looking at me, and I'm sitting there, I've never been home, I don't know, what do I do? And it was a very introspective moment, and it was one of those things that I said, well, I've been comfortable for the last few years, what can I do better? I gotta come out of this, you know, bigger, I gotta come out of this stronger, I gotta come out of it better. So let me look back, you know, how did I grow? How did I go from 5 to 35? And then from 35, I grew to 55. And how I did that was by focusing on businesses. So you gotta get comfortable being uncomfortable. You gotta try it. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. What's the worst that happens? You try, you fail. Oh well. You still have your business, right? So, you know, start small, you know, test it, see if it works. take somebody to the Christmas light show, take mom for lunch. You probably have capacity, I would imagine, you do, and use it. Look, I'm not gonna talk about efficiency, I'm not gonna talk about, utilization of vehicles and all that stuff. I think there's been conferences, there's already been people talk about that, and, obviously, to me, that's sort of second nature. You want the vehicle on the road as much as you can, earning money. The more it sits, the less you earn. But in terms of like growing your business and getting more jobs and doing that, that's what I focus this on. I think so. Any other questions? Yes.
Kind of related to that, how do you think about strategy and prioritization around like market segmentation or identifying types of customers that you want to be doing business with?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that using a good CRM helps with that because you can sort of silo, your types of customers. You have your high volume order facilities. There are specialty clinics that are orthopedic clinics, or a big one actually. If you do not, I have a great tip for you guys. Great tip. And you guys might already do this, but if you do ambulatory, right? Colonoscopies, right? Colonoscopies are a problem because you get put under. And every person has to get a colonoscopy. It's almost standard practice now, right? Everybody gets a colonoscopy when they hit a certain age, I'm almost there. And what happens is you gotta get put under, and a lot of the time, it's hard to get a ride because the colonoscopy clinic, the gastroenterologist will not let you ride in a taxi because you have to be signed out. It's actually a law. Well, at least in New York, I don't know about your states, but in New York, it's a law. And I think it's the same in most places. There's best practice. We actually contracted with a colonoscopy clinic, right? And a bunch of them. And we put a bunch of non-wheelchair ambulatory vehicles on the road, had the appropriate liability insurance to cover assistance. And my drivers would go in, sign the patient out, and the clinic would pay us. And it was great. And they actually paid us out of petty cash. So it was cash. It was wonderful. It was like almost a $5,000 a week account, but it was being paid in cash. And it was before COVID, of course. But I was like, this is great. Like, why haven't I done this? So finding the right market segment and like what facilities inside, yes, use your CRM to silo those. Say these are nursing homes, these are hospitals, these are specialty clinics, and I mean there's no real science, unfortunately, to say focus all on hospitals, right? That's what I'm going to do. You have to sort of focus on everything because the end game is to grow. And if you're doing what I said, just to keep hiring and keep buying vehicles, you have to feed the beast while also putting on fire. Any other questions?
Do you know of any bankers that know the industry that understand looking at our P&Ls and projections that are good lenders for?
I mean, it's a bit of a geographical question. I found that I'm able to get credit. Actually, yeah, I'll give you the name of somebody who's good. Where are you located?
Arizona.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
I have some relationships with vehicle lenders and I've had for years, obviously. But more often than not, wherever you're purchasing the vehicle is from a dealer, they probably have some of those relationships as well. Look, access to credit is obviously an issue. Don't get me wrong, right? But it's available.
Yeah. Vehicle credit is pretty easy. It's the line of credit for operating expenses.
So you're talking about financing receivables.
I mean, just like open line of credit.
That's a whole other topic.
Open line of credit to grow.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And really what that is financing receivables. So that's a huge part of our industry. And I'm sure you guys are well aware of that. And I didn't really prepare something we could talk about that. It is a challenge. And unfortunately, this is a business where you need money. You do have to have resources. You can't come into it with nothing and expect to come out to it with one. You do. You have to have money, you have to be good with it, you have to be smart. Because the truth is unless you're all private pay, you get paid at time of service, which is great. And that's what, we built Tobi to actually help do that. When you start doing Medicaid and LTCs and brokers, you are gonna finance those receivables. And that is a challenge. And that's something that you have to prepare for. That's enterprise resource planning, it's a little bit of a different conversation. But I appreciate the question. That all she wrote? Yep. All right. Any last questions? If not, do me a favor, schedule a demo with our software. I guarantee you're gonna like it. If you don't, let me know, and we'll fix it. All right? Thanks, everyone.